Ladies and gentlemen, I have exciting news. One, I'm back from Florida, and two, we are going back to the freaking moon. Now, this might come as a surprise to you, but I love space, and I love space travel. Ever since I was a little kid, I dreamed about space. I even had those little planets that you hang up on your ceiling and they glowed in the dark, and it was so cool, and there were stars everywhere. I loved space as a kid, and I ate up every single little bit of information about every single planet, and let me tell you, it was very hard in elementary school and middle school to be a fan of space when all of your friends would come up to you and say, "Well, what about Uranus, huh?" Stupid. But I would continue to do my research and look up different things, and one day I remember specifically that I was watching YouTube videos about space and all of that stuff, and I wanted to watch the moon landing. So I typed in the moon landing, and there was a word that ended up at the end of it, and that word was hoax. Now, I've never heard of the moon landing hoax before. I thought everyone in the world believed that, well, humans landed on the moon. And that right there, ladies and gentlemen, is when I discovered my first conspiracy theory. I watched that video, I watched it all the way through, and it didn't convince me that the moon landing was fake. They might have had some good arguments, but in my mind, it was set. The moon landing actually happened, and we actually landed on the moon. And to this day, I'm still not convinced that we faked the moon landing. I still believe that it would be harder to fake the moon landing than to actually do the moon landing itself. However, to some people, the moon landing was fake, and also all of space is fake. All the planets are fake, and some people even believe that the moon is just a hologram. The moon isn't even real. And of course, we get people believing that the Earth is somehow flat. How on earth, pun intended, did all of this happen? When did we all stop believing that the world was round and we had to believe that it's flat and that there's a big ice wall surrounding it and that the CIA is blocking people from going over it, and over top of the ice wall there are other continents and countries and things, and it's wild and it's crazy, and to me, I think it's a little silly. Now, all of this space stuff is coming up because Artemis II just launched out of Florida. And guess what? I was just in Florida last week, and I was able to catch a little glimpse of the actual shuttle going into orbit. It was so cool to watch. Hold on. And we were able to see literally 0.2 seconds of the rocket going up into space, and it was super cool to watch. We went running for a beach, and everyone was standing there watching it. We were pretty far away, so we only got a little glimpse of it. Here's a video of it that my wife took. I thank her for it because I was busy looking at something else, and I thought for a moment that it was going to be longer, but it wasn't. But it was still super cool. I did see it, and it was awesome. However, this whole space mission and this whole Artemis II stuff came with a cost. My Twitter feed, my Instagram feed, my Facebook feed, as I talked about before, is full of conspiracy theorists. The Artemis spacecraft isn't real. That stuff didn't actually happen. The Apollo missions isn't real. The Earth is flat. There's a firmament. You can't break through the firmament. If you do, then water would go everywhere. The astronauts are going into the Bermuda Triangle. They get rescued off of the ship right before it goes into the ocean. Blah, 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 blah. I have heard everything. And people will ask good questions too. Why is it that we haven't gone back to the moon? Why has it taken so long to actually go back there? And to answer that question, we have to have some context of history. In the late 60s and early 70s, we were in the middle of a Cold War. America was fighting the Soviet Union for space superiority. This was also known as the space race, because it rhymes, duh. The Soviet Union, for their part, had a lot of victories in the space race, including the first satellite, the first animal in orbit, first human in space, and also the first spacewalk. And all of those things were great victories, but the United States wanted to go further. Their goal from the start was the moon. So that's when we started working on going to the moon, and that's when the Apollo missions were launched. Now, not every single Apollo mission was successful. Apollo 1 tragically burst into flames, leading to the deaths of all 3 astronauts on board. Apollo 13, though the crew broke the record for furthest away from the Earth, also ran into trouble, as they unfortunately had an oxygen tank blow up, which prevented them from actually landing on the moon. But all of this isn't doom and gloom. Apollo 8 was successful. They were the ones that actually went around the moon, just like how Artemis II is right now. And also Apollo 11, Apollo 12, Apollo 14, Apollo 15, and Apollo 17 were all successful missions. Every single one of those spaceships landed on the moon, and we have evidence of that. They put reflectors on the moon where you can bounce lights off of it and see from Earth that we actually landed on the moon. They put those there for the naysayers so then we can actually prove to them that yes, we did land on the moon 100%. And if we did fake the moon landing, then why is it that we continue to go back there constantly? You would think that it would make more sense to just say, okay, Apollo 11, you go land on the moon, and then come back, and then we're going to celebrate and party, and we won't go back again. We continue to go back constantly for those separate years. We achieved the ultimate goal, and that is why America claims that they won the space race, even if the Soviet Union did more than what we had. We did the ultimate goal. We actually put a person on another part of space. But wait, I hear you say, why haven't you answered the question? Why haven't we been back to space? And why are we going back to the moon now? Well, money is a big culprit. Now, this might be a shock to you, but it takes a lot of money to strap people to a rocket and send them into deep space. And also, by the time that Apollo 17 launched, landed on the moon, and came back, people started to kind of get bored with the space program. I know that's weird to think about, but people were like, this was successful so many times, why do I care? Apollo 11 was the peak, and after that, it just continued to dive down. Along with that, the Soviet Union fell, and so we weren't in a space race anymore, and it just kind of fizzled out. There wasn't really a point to going to the moon anymore. We started to focus on other things. The United States and also NASA started focusing on other things, and this is where the shuttle missions started taking off. We started building satellites like the International Space Station and other satellites that are around our planet right now. So we have had a presence in space since the 70s, but we just haven't done that deep space travel that everyone has been talking about, like going to the moon, going to Mars, doing other things like that. But I believe that ever since the 70s, NASA's mission has been to go back to the moon, but the problem has always been funding because NASA has been getting axed every single year for their budget. For example, with Artemis, the very first budget that was proposed to start this space program was started during the Obama administration. That was a long time ago. They had the money set aside for different opportunities, maybe to start building a rocket, maybe going to the moon, talking about all that stuff. But then later, the budget was cut due to budget constraints and also delays. Apparently, politicians like to focus money on other things besides space travel. And then it sat on the back burner during Trump's first term, and then it also sat on the back burner for Joe Biden's term. But then it changed when Donald Trump came in for a second term, as in December of 2025, Trump signed the Ensuring American Space Superiority Executive Order, which gave NASA the funds to take humans back to the moon. This time, though, technology has increased so much that NASA had to restart the whole entire space program from scratch. We can't use a Saturn V rocket like we did during the Apollo missions. That would be like going back to a horse and buggy when we have cars. We have technology right now that is better than what we had in the 70s. So they rebuilt the whole entire moon space program, and now Artemis II is in space right now flying around the moon. Now, I want to talk more about conspiracy theories because, they're kind of fun. As one of these conspiracy theories is that NASA purposely launched this rocket on April 1st to trick the entire world into thinking that this spaceship was actually going to space, but it was all a big April Fool's joke. Yes, I'm sure that a $1 billion government organization would halt the launch of a spaceship because of some silly date on a calendar. Also, people fail to realize that this mission has been pushed back multiple times. Apparently, it was supposed to launch in September, got pushed back. It was supposed to launch in February, got pushed back. So April was the perfect window for this spaceship to go off. And if you don't know a lot about space, the moon and the Earth have to be in certain ways, so then the rocket can actually go around the moon and then come back without using a lot of fuel. They picked April 1st because it was in that window, not because of some silly holiday that people made up. And right now, Artemis II is on a historic journey as they have broken Apollo 13's distance record. And the crew even got to hear a very special message from Jim Lovell, who was on the Apollo 13 spacecraft, who tragically passed away before this launch even took place. The crew also named a crater after one of the astronauts' wives who passed away due to cancer. And overall, it has just been a fun mission. It's been cool to see these pictures and to see the craters on the moon. It's awesome. I love it. And as of right now, the Artemis II crew is headed back to Earth, where they will hopefully safely land in the Pacific Ocean. It is honestly fun to have stories like this. Not political, not crazy, not hair ripping out, not Donald Trump did this or that or whatever, but something that's fun. I believe that space can bring everyone together. We saw it during Apollo 11 when Neil Armstrong got off of the ladder and onto the moon's surface. People from all over the world were watching that. And in his words, he said, "One small step for man and one giant leap for mankind." Not meaning Americans, not meaning black or white, meaning all of mankind, all people. And when you look at a picture from the astronauts of Earth, it's crazy to think that we are all people on this little marble in the middle of space just floating around. It puts into perspective that we need to be nicer to people. We need to love more people. And I think space can actually bring us together. And that's why I think we're doing this. And that's why I just love space. And it will be exciting to see what Artemis III is planning on doing. I think it's going to be the one where we actually land on the moon. I know they have to do more testing of different dockings and other things like that, but it will be exciting to see a person actually land on the moon in my lifetime. And then hopefully after that, we will be building a base on the moon, which will help us to get to Mars. But who knows what will happen in the future. But just remember, please, the Earth is round, the moon is real, the planets exist, all of that good stuff. And with that, I just want to thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Dockery Docket. And until next time, like my mom always says, be good, be kind, be loving, goodbye.